Hello and welcome back to our RP1 career playthrough. I apologize in the delay in episodes. It's taken a little bit to get them out. I've been a little bit distracted by a new game of mine, and I've been kind of dedicating the majority of my off time to that. But I have quite a bit of footage to get through and stock up, so I'm going to try to get back on schedule a little bit and post with a little more regularity. We have quite a bit to get through in the RP1 series, still left to go, so let's go ahead and get started, get our game going, and let's get going. We are going to be focusing on the X-Plane program again today. We are going to be doing two flights, a jet flight and a rocket engine flight, and Angela Watson is going to be our pilot for both of them. She's going to be breaking all sorts of records today. As you see here, the only thing we have in the KCT management window is a reconditioning of our Dawnbreaker, and we are going to be putting another Dawnbreaker, basically a copy of the last, the rocket from the previous episode, we're going to just send up again for science. So today we're going to focus on two contracts. One is this launch a crewed vessel to 20 kilometers. Is a height, and this is a required contract for the program. And then the other contract that we're going to be working on is the optional high speed, where we have to maintain our speed between 650 675 meters per second with a jet aircraft. So that's what we're going to kind of be focusing on today. We don't need to do the optional because obviously it's optional, but it will be replenishing our our confidence, and for future programs we'd like to have a little more confidence so that way we can take them at higher speed. So we're in here in the R&D development screen, so that way we can kind of take a look at the technology that we already have. I want to know that we have the ability of reaching 20 kilometers without killing our Kerbals before we take that contract. So we're going to come in here and kind of look at our cockpits. We have this early jet fighter cockpit. It's got a lot of information here. If you ever have any questions about any of the parts in Kerbal, I definitely recommend, and stock Kerbal alike, definitely recommend reading through its notes. It's got a lot of information there, and sometimes you can learn a lot. But yeah, so that X1 cockpit allows us to reach 30 kilometers in altitude. So we can definitely complete that contract. So let's go ahead and get started on our first launch. This is going to be the Jet Plane 2. We already have a tried and true plane for it. We just need Angela Watson to be trained up in the mission. She's already proficient in the cockpit, and we're going to do that while we prepare the craft for air launch. The mission itself only takes about an hour, so we could have done that a little bit closer to the launch, but it doesn't matter all that much. She's got time. And of course it is nighttime, so we're going to go ahead and warp to morning. So that way we can see what we're doing, see the flight, see the runway as we approach for a safe landing. And if we land safely at the KSC, then we will get a little bit of confidence added to that. So that's always good. I'm going to fast forward a little bit so it's just a little bit brighter. And we're going to go ahead and air launch. I'm going to change the distance to the Space Center from 650 to 750, just to give a little bit of extra room to collect all of our science. We're going to be going Mach 2 at this point, so we're going to be going faster, which means we're going to arrive sooner, which means we'll have less time to do our science. So we go ahead and get started, but for some reason my air brakes are up. I think that's because I left them up when I recovered the plane last, so I quickly try to get them closed so they don't interfere with our initial drag. My staging wasn't correct, so I go ahead and correct that. I'm having a little bit of frame loss as the air launch program is getting started. It takes a little bit to think about. But as soon as I gain control, I lift my landing gear, I throttle up my engine, I turn it on, and I get my autopilot on as quickly as possible. But it still doesn't keep me from dipping down. I want to regain control of this as quickly as possible, and since it takes a little bit of time before the jet engine can spool up to its maximum power, I get my waypoint manager up there, and I try to hold myself level as much as possible. I'm jamming on the key. As you can see from the rear elevation, it's just fighting so hard to keep upright. Then I breathe a sigh of relief as the jet engine takes over and the craft becomes a lot more controllable. So I tap on the speed control onto the atmospheric autopilot, but that's it's not good to do until you're actually at that speed. If you're too low of a speed, the computer doesn't quite read it right, and sometimes it'll shut off your engine, as you saw there. Skipping ahead a little bit, we are now at the cruising altitude, we are now at the cruising speed, and we are developing science and satisfying our contracts. As you can see here, our science is running. It's only going to be able to collect a certain amount before it runs out, and we will have to fly multiple flights in order to gain all the science available. And we're just going to cruise at 4 times physics warp until the contract completes. As you see here, we got 15 seconds to go. I take a little vanity shot, and as I do, our contract completes, and all we have to do now is land safely, either on the runway or in the water. As long as Angela Watson makes it out alive, we'll complete the mission. And as long as our cockpit survives, we'll be able to keep the science that we created. So, skipping ahead a little bit, and our Mach 2 speed starts to show wear and tear on our cockpit. It starts to get very hot, so we have to lower our speed, which of course stops our science because we're no longer going Mach 2, but it's worth it to prevent the cockpit from overheating. Kind of leaning back, trying to slow down a bit. We pop in our heading control, so now we're going to be pointed more towards the KSC, and it's okay that we don't regain we don't complete all the science available for this one run. I would much rather play it safe and keep Angela Watson, our intrepid pilot, our very first pilot, keep her safe, because I would like to see her go to space. So now the heat gauge is gone, and we're just going to kind of glide our way back in. We're going to kick our throttle back up, try to regain some speed. We still have some distance before the KSC, so maybe there's a chance that we can get ourselves back up to Mach 2 speed and finish off that science. Unfortunately, we get a little too close for comfort, and we do not make it back up to Mach 2 speed, but that's okay. We can always leave that for our other pilot to handle. So I put on some speed control to kind of slow myself down. I still am not the most comfortable at landing, so I want to do this as carefully as possible, and sometimes in my mind it just coming in at a slower approach, even much sooner, just feels safer to me. So one thing I've kind of noticed is that it's not always great to have all 3 parameters of the fly-by-wire, or excuse me, the cruise navigator open to active. The heading, the speed control, and the altitude sometimes will fight against each other. As you see here, it's almost like I'm stalling. I'm stuck at 290 meters per second, barely making any progress, and at this kind of weird angle because the plane is constantly trying to hold myself at 1,000 meters, which is doing very well, but it's also trying to hold myself at 290 meters per second. And it just has all these things fighting against each other. It's also holding at the heading. So I don't think that, obviously you can have all three connected at once, but I feel that just kind of choosing one, either the speed or the vertical motion, or the heading for the majority of the times. Obviously, if you're trying to complete a contract, holding speed and altitude is important, but maybe don't hold heading. I think it'll just work a little bit better. Heading is pretty easy to change after the fact, because if you just give yourself enough time, you can always line yourself up at the end. See, like, we were completely off our heading there, but now we are fixing that, and we're going to make it one more adjustment before we come in for our final approach. But I'm going ahead and using the altitude section of the autopilot to bring myself down incrementally. And now we pop in our final course adjustment to line up with the runway. We're going to drop our altitude down once more. And I'm keeping the majority of this footage unedited, because I want you to see our landing attempt in full. I'm, as you can tell from previous episodes, I'm not playing with strict consequences. Obviously, we're going to allow ourselves a few reverts, and we're going to make every attempt to save a mission. There are going to be some parameters in which we will choose not to, but as far as things like landing attempts, that's like, I'm not the best pilot in the world. I'm not the best at the WASD, and I do have a joystick, but sometimes it doesn't like to work. Sometimes it really likes to fight me on this, and so I will allow myself some reverse. But if there's design failures, if there is, mission failures in certain things, we're going to kind of accept those losses. But this isn't in any way a super hardcore or realistic playthrough. This honestly is the farthest I've ever gotten in RP1. Every episode you see is new ground for me. There will come a point where I am probably going to reach the limits of my knowledge, and everything from there on out is going to be me attempting as best I can to complete those goals. So bear with me. I will appreciate all the tips and tricks and insight that you all can give me, and I appreciate that. I have been loving your comments so far. I've been learning a lot. I'm going to be taking some certain things into play with my next orbital rockets. One of the tips that I've been really appreciating is to balance out my Delta V. I think that's going to make a huge difference coming up soon, especially the fact that the Dawnbreaker is a rocket capable of is capable of more than it needs to for a lot of the contracts that it needs to. So hopefully it will be able to grow with us. But as I talk through our landing, here we are, successfully and safely landing on the runway. We're going to get a little bit of confidence from that. Angela Watson is going to extend her retirement date and she's got another successful flight under her belt. Contract has been complete, and as soon as we can get the brakes on, we'll go ahead and recover her through the KCT menu. So that was our first successful flight. We have another one, but we need to build a new rocket plane for it. So we're going to go ahead and work on that next. But as you see here, she pushed back her retirement a little bit. We got a bit of science for that. Not enough to unlock our next node, but that's okay, because we're going to be doing a another contract here, another flight here soon. And then I wiggled my mouse. You saw I actually got quite a bit of confidence from that, from not only completing the contract, but from landing safely, as I mentioned before. We're going to head, and we got rid of one of our older planes, our older X-plane, and we're going to go ahead and make a new one for that. Taking a look at my engineers, but there's nothing I can really do to adjust them around, so coming into mission control, we're just going to take a quick peek at the next level of X-plane optional high speed, and it's just a matter of going even faster than before. We have tested our jet and it can manage those speeds. Whether or not our cockpit can handle that, as we saw in the last flight, is a completely different question, but hopefully by the time we want to take that contract, we'll have better technology. But then again, it is optional, so. Once again, I did talk through the contract parameters, the mission parameters for this, and that is to reach an altitude between 10 and 20 kilometers and to go a certain speed for a certain amount of time. As I scroll through the information here on the X1 cockpit and get all the way down, we can see that it's an unpressurized cockpit, and any altitude above 30 kilometers can result in death. So thankfully, we only have to go to 20, so this cockpit will be plenty. So we're going to go ahead and set up kind of an emergency stage with a parachute and decoupler rings. So worst case scenario, we can just separate the cockpit, and that will save the science and the Kerbal. And then worse than that, if we need to eject the Kerbal from the seat, then we can. I guess they're humans. We're playing RP1. This is realistic, but still hard not to think of them as Kerbals. But anyways, here we are. We have 3 different tanks, or 3 different segments. I want to have a little bit more of a curve to the body on this plane, this X-plane. We want to try to make it a little more aerodynamic. I am taking a shot in the dark on a lot of this. I don't know the specifics of aerodynamics enough to really say, but I'm playing around with it, trying to get a better idea. I want to make more than just, flying tubes. I want to try to get it. Here we are putting on the XLR11, but we have some config upgrades, so we're going to go ahead and pick the highest one that we can that we've unlocked so far. We're going to kind of extend out the cone. We want to cover most of the engine nozzles with our tank and utilize the space for fuel. We want to be able to utilize all the space for fuel because as a rocket plane, this doesn't burn for very long. So if we want to get anything done in any amount of time, we're going to need to have the fuel capacity as well, while still maintaining a lighter body. Being able to use isogrid tanks for our planes has, I think, made a huge difference in our program. A lot of the times people start off with X-planes and early suborbital rocketry, the 2 programs right at the beginning, and so they're using not aluminum tanks, steel tanks, and high pressure steel tanks, and then eventually aluminum tanks, and so they're dealing with these heavy materials right off the bat. But because we did the other 2 programs, the 2 rocketry programs, and now we're working on X-planes a little bit later, we have access to better quality materials, and I think those lighter materials, the isogrid tanks, really made a difference in this program. So I'm pretty happy about that. So here I am. I got my body set out. I'm now making the little rails that I attach my wings and my control surfaces to. Just a nice way to keep everything in line and level. And it's a nice guide to kind of put everything together. So we're going to use supersonic all-moving wings here, so that way we don't have to deal with any control surfaces. The entire wing itself is the control surface. It's the difference between all-moving. we're just kind of eyeballing the shape and the length. We're going to go ahead and adjust all this later. When it comes to airplane design in RP1, when it comes to airplane design in stock KSP, and obviously when it comes to airplane design in reality, micro adjustments on things like aerodynamic surfaces make a huge difference, and you can spend a lot of your time on just making tiny little adjustments on the wings, and sometimes that'll make the difference in a mission. So here we are. We're making the actual wings, the long wings. I don't know if there's a technical name. I know there's the tail fins and then the wings, but I've kind of been calling everything the wing. But if there is some technical vocabulary about this that I'm getting incorrect, please let me know. I should be doing some more studying. I used to scour the Wikipedia, the RP1 wiki, and then that led me into just some general rocket history wikis. But I kind of stopped doing that after the sounding rocket stage, and maybe I should do some more studying. Because that's what everybody wants in their video games, is more studying. But when it comes to simulators like this, especially historical simulators like that, that's kind of the point, it's that realism. So I decided to paint the control surfaces early because that helped differentiate between them and the wing. That'll just allow me to design them a little better. And I built enough of this plane that it's probably time to name the thing, stop it from being untitled craft, and if anything happens, I want it to be able to be saved, because I'm actually pretty happy with this design. I like the shape of the body, I like how the wings are shaped, so I don't want to lose it. So we're going to go ahead and get these. I think they're called elevators. I think I also heard them called elevatrons, but maybe that's just the name of the Kerbal part. I can't remember, but I kind of just default to calling them control surfaces. I tried something different by just copying the wing itself here, and I'm just going to adjust it to make these little end caps. Gonna try to adjust them to match as best I can. Make them thin enough so they're not taking up too much weight, too much space, too much aerodynamics. But having these little end caps helps keep a lot of the drag off that corner elevator. Now we're just going to add its controls and set those up for the rest of them. I'm sorry for taking so much time on the building process. I don't know if this is as interesting to everybody else as it is to me. I think when I watch a lot of other people's playthroughs, sometimes the most interesting part is the building process to me, because I can kind of see how other people work through their designs, and kind of that helps me with my own solving my own issues and things like that. But if this is something that you're not as interested in seeing, if you'd like me to just focus more on the launches, and I can just build in the off time, I'll spend a little time showing you what I made, and then we'll just go from there, spend more time on launches, do more launches per episode, things like that. if that's something that y'all would prefer, then just let me know in the comments. I'm willing to change up the format, but I like spending some time on the build, so that's just kind of my natural flow. But if that's not interesting to people, then obviously I don't want to make you sit through all this. Oh, my wheel is off kilter. I can't remember if I noticed that or not, but I just noticed that there. My front landing gear is slightly off center. But apparently not. I'm just gonna go ahead and test it. The test flight went well. The rocket plane can handle all of it that it needs to do. I didn't test landing, so we'll see. So we're gonna go ahead and add the high altitude science experiment. Even though that this is, I believe, not going to be satisfying that. I don't think we go high enough for that. But it's okay. It's good enough to have anything. I don't think we're going to be going Mach 2 or anything. We're not going to be able to pick up that science, so. So let's go ahead and get our emergency escape craft stage set up, and watch me make a terrible decision. Here I am thinking that the only time we're going to have to emergency exit is probably when we're landing, and so I rate my parachutes to open up very, very, very low. I'm sure that won't haunt me in the end. That won't come back to bite me. So we're going to put it all together, make sure our staging is correct. Make some last minute changes to the tail fins, for no other reason except for aesthetics. I felt like they were a little too short. Maybe they wouldn't have had enough control. It's always important to strike a balance between size and control. We're going to throw some air brakes on there because it's better for slowing craft like this down for landing. They're comically huge though, so there's that. I'm going to try to program in some flap control into the action groups, but I don't think I'm going to use it very much. I'm not too familiar with flap control like that and best usages for them. Let's go ahead and slap some paint on here, make it look nice. We're going to go ahead with the olive green look for, we did that on our first X-plane, first rocket plane, and so just going to kind of continue that. Our jets tend to be white and gold, so our X-planes can be olive and gold. It would make more sense to just leave them the stock silver, that way they'd match with the X1 cockpit. I'm a little disappointed that we can't paint the cockpit like all the other parts. And just making some more tiny adjustments. Don't like how big that gap was in there. I'm just gonna center that out. So there's a small gap on either side, but that's better than having the pieces crammed together. So we're gonna go ahead and mark the tail wings with the GWXP2 designation. And we're gonna play around with some decals and see well, it looks nice. Kind of like the look of this hazard strip. I'm not really sure how best to use it. These numbers are pretty cool. They kind of take me by surprise. I didn't realize we could kind of do numbers in that style. That'll be nice when we run multiples of the same style of craft. You know, this will be the GWXP2, number 2. And XP2 number 3. So we don't go with any side decals, but we are going to go ahead and throw a name on here, as has been standard with the past few planes that we've been doing. We're going to name this one Sandra, for no other reason except for we don't have a plane named Sandra. But before we throw the name on there, we're going to go ahead and tool all the pieces to it, and put it, save the craft for later use. And now we're going to go ahead and throw her name tag on there. So it failed the checks because our hanger was not set to hold it. So we're going to go ahead and upgrade it, and we run through that time. We're going to fast forward to launch day. So here we are, air launching it, and rocket engines ignite with no problem. So now all we got to do is climb to the appropriate altitude, pass these landmark achievements, complete this contract, and make it back safely. So we're going to go ahead and set our flight control. And we're having a little bit difficulty pitching up, so we're going to go and add that to our control surfaces and allow our wings to control the pitch as well as the roll. Honestly, I don't know why there'd be any reason not to add pitch to the wing elevators. It just seems beneficial. Obviously, there must be a reason, because everything that I've ever read says that the wing are only flaps and roll control. But on all my planes, I add pitch control to them. So let me know if you know. But we're using a very short amount of burn time to climb. I did not read the contract correctly. I thought we had to be above 20 kilometers, but it turns out we have to be between 10 and 20 kilometers, going at a certain speed for a certain time period. So this plane will not complete that contract. However, it will complete the milestone and the secondary contract of reaching 20 kilometer altitude, which we just did right there. And we're leveling out a little bit. I programmed the flight control to top us off at 25 because we have another altitude record for that. So we're going to go ahead and reach that before completing our objectives here. And there we go. And we have broken it. Angela Watson has been the highest Kerbal in Kerbal history. I adjusted my speed control, which was a terrible decision because the autopilot was like, oh, you're going too fast. You don't need to go that fast. So instead of throttling down, which is what I should have done, it decided to kill the engine. But of course, we only had the one ignition for the engine, which means that for the duration of this flight, I will not be able to throttle to have any kind of thrust from our engine. So not the smartest idea, but I don't it's not the worst thing that could happen because it's here that I'm seeing that we're not going to be able to complete the contract because we didn't hit the parameters. It's important to read everything when it comes to that, but we did hit the 20 kilometers and 25 kilometers, so I'm pretty happy with this. So we're just going to kind of glide as much as we can. Here I am. I'm just going to try to get the engines on any way possible, see if I can just, reignite them or anything, but nope. So when it comes to slowing down an X-plane like this, if you want to do that. Don't rely on the cruise flight control, speed control aspect. Just, lower the throttle yourself, because you can throttle it down. The XLR11, you can throttle it down, but... Oh, so here I decided to turn off the flight control. I turned off autopilot for a second, and because of that, I lost control entirely. And before I knew it, Sandra ripped apart. I was very unhappy with that, but I was very thankful that the cockpit itself, I reacted quick enough in time to activate the stage, the emergency stage, to separate the cockpit. But try as I might, the parachute is not opening, and that's when I remembered I had set it to this number down here. So that parachute will not open. It will not deploy until 100 meters above the surface, and will not actually fully open until 20 meters below the surface, and that is going to be deadly for our pilot. So we just decided to eject her entirely. Flashing lights warning until the end of the video. I apologize, that's just kind of how it happened. During this time, my computer was struggling very much, and this was playing very slowly. Even at 4 times physics warp, this descent down to the ocean took about 25 minutes, 20 minutes, somewhere around there. I, straight up went off and did other things and came back to find her still hovering above the water. So I was, all that I could focus on was getting her down, landed, recovered, and returned safely to the KSC, so I could just save, quit, and turn my computer off for a little while, let it breathe. But thankfully that was the last of the issues. The computer managed to handle the coming episodes well enough, and that's the only problem that I have. But I do have a pretty awful computer, potato. My graphics card is an integrated 580, so the fact that I can even run things like this is a testament to just what can be done if you try hard enough. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and bring Angela Watson safely down to the water and bring her home. We're going to take another stab at that contract, but pretty soon we are going to be completing the X-Plane programs and moving on to grander things. But anyways, that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more RP1. If you did, please consider giving me a like, drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I will see y'all in the next one. Take care.